Hi, this is Elizabeth Adams with Beate. I am a coach offering a coaching intensive that support people in unleashing their innovation for business and life without the workaholism. We'll be discussing in this episode my number one strategy for identifying opportunities, realizing new visions, and bringing to fruition your long buried dreams and desires.
Hello, fabulous person. Beate Chelette here, the Growth Architect. Welcome back to the Business Growth Architect Show, where we bring you cutting-edge business strategies from some of the world's most successful entrepreneurs, business transformation experts, and visionaries who want to help you to scale your impact. Look for one tangible strategy that you can take back and implement right away. And now back to our guest. Hello and welcome back. This is your host, Beate Chelette, the host of the Business Growth Architect Show. Today, I have with me Elizabeth Adams, and we are going to talk about something that you would think is completely counterintuitive and counteractive to everything I talk about. It is almost like the strategy of not having a strategy, and that by itself is going to blow our mind. Liz, I'm so excited for you to be here. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and who you are and what you do?
Oh, thanks, Biache. Thanks for having me here. Hi, everyone. I have been in the space of business for the last, 25 years and creating in that space. And I learned through a series of 10 years of workaholism that actually creating is very simple, but we get in the way. We get in the way with our head, with our thoughts, and with our programming around perception, projection, definition, and beliefs. And we're ourselves, and we can allow ourselves to actually relax and surrender to our desire, even. Life happens. What we're intending for comes to fruition. It's not about working hard. We have a culture of workaholism. It's systemic in our society. As women, and sometimes as men also, we have a habit of people pleasing. And all of those things are ways of deflecting connection. And if you had to ask me what my strategy is for growth, it's connection. Connection first and foremost with ourselves, with understanding all the ways that we put blocks and sort of defenses up, and all the ways that we can allow ourselves to look at that straight in the eye, not hiding from it, not trying to defend it, but look it straight in the eye.
So, one of the things, Liz, when I met you first and we spoke, that really stood out to me is that your history obviously is one that is probably interchangeable with so many: hustle, do the work, get it done, get to the next goal, set the goals, make sure they're smart goals. Are you achieving your goals, KPIs, whatever that sort of thing is? And then you said to me that you basically just not stopped running a business efficiently, but that you stopped the wild chase. Because when we are chasing something, what happens to the goal?
Oh, really good point. It really gets diluted. It gets further away from us. What we're going for just moves, and we're ending up on a hamster wheel, right? So I didn't start out there. I started out creating beautifully, but then I started listening to everything around me and everyone around me. And I internally was making myself wrong. So this was in my early 20s, right? And it's a subtle internal dialogue that slowly we start to listen to what's outside of us instead of what's inside. So it's a twofold thing. It's like we begin to chase based on the advice that's coming from around us rather than our clear vision and our clear end result.
So what you're saying is that, and I want to be very specific, and I mentioned this when we were in the green room on what happened to me. So I want to make this really specific and very clear with an example for our wonderful listeners. I had set a goal for this quarter that I was going to figure out my sales process. So in growth architecture, the way we run things, we set a strategy for every quarter of the year, and then that becomes our main focus, our priority for the business. So in the previous quarter, we had it all about lead generation. So now that we had the lead generation figured out, now the next step logically is sales. But I had a hiccup because I had planned to hire somebody to do that for me who, ghosted me. And I had a medical procedure that I couldn't postpone anymore. So I'm completely out, like out for 2.5 weeks. And there literally is nothing I can physically or mentally do because I'm drugged out. I'm, on the couch. I'm with a heating pack, ice pack, whatever. There's nothing I can do. And in the second week, I get a ping on Facebook Messenger, direct message, and it says, "Are you still looking for somebody to help you with sales?" And I'm sitting there, Liz, and I'm going like, somebody please explain to me what just happened. How is it possible that something that I was looking for and trying to create suddenly is in front of me? What's happening here energetically, Liz, that we can share with the audience so they understand how these principles you talk about work?
Well, you're in intention, right?
Hmm.
You've set your intention. The mistake is that you believed before that it was your job to make it all happen.
Okay, tell us more about that because I think this is the core of everything that you talk about.
Okay, well, I mean, once we've set our intention and then we're open. So it sounds to me like because you were unwell, you are more open than at the time when you're fully engaged in your business. So there's a level of receptivity in that state of being that allowed a message to penetrate through. Had you rewound and that message had come to you 2 weeks prior, you probably may have dismissed it. You might have been too busy, you might have missed it, or you might have been caught up in a mental space of, I want it this way, or it has to be that way. It doesn't matter how we get somewhere. You see, that's the difference. It's like, are you clear on what it is that you're creating? What's the end result? And however it happens, it's like that's being flexible. That's being open. That's allowing things to show up to support you. It doesn't mean that it's always going to be the perfect fit. But if it isn't, it's usually there to teach us something.
This is so interesting because you're absolutely correct, is that um, I think in a state of vulnerability, and and I thought it was vulnerability because there was not much I could do or influence. um I literally, my only goal was healing as quickly as I could. That was my main goal because otherwise it'll take longer, and so I'm like, I'm going to take this as seriously as I take everything else. But when this came through, so the first couple of thoughts I have, well, he's not from a location that I had wanted. He is not in the United States. This person is from a different place. What if they have an accent? Because that's not going to work for our clients. We see, very strong bias against, especially in sales conversation with people that have, you know, for native English speakers that have an accent or they can't understand them. So there's like all this stuff going on. And you go, well, there's so much to overcome. And there was a point where I'm going like, I don't even know. But because I was in the state of vulnerability, I wasn't fighting. I was like, what do I have to lose? Because I said, for this quarter, and this quarter is almost over, that this was my goal. Maybe somebody was listening. So if we now take this teaching, Liz, and we share again with our audience the clarity of the vision or the intention. So is there a difference? Because in my opinion, when you ask people what they want, it is the hardest thing that they'll have to ever tell you.
Yeah, that is very true. Mhm.
Why is it so hard to get clear on what it is that you want? And number two, is intention different from being clear about what you want?
It can be two things. Um, we've spent a lifetime, normally, most people, being trained to abandon ourselves first and foremost. So a lot of the time we don't know ourselves. We don't know what brings us joy. We don't know what serves us, right? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, because we don't know, we adapt. We look outside and we see, oh, that person, they've got this car, they've got this lifestyle. I want that. And so we go off on a journey to have that. And we leave who we are behind. Like, we don't even see who we are. Because just because somebody else has done it, and just because somebody else is living it, doesn't make it a match for who we are. Doesn't make it a match for the truth of our essence, our heart. Doesn't necessarily bring us fulfillment. Doesn't mean you can't accomplish it. You can. It's actually quite easy to accomplish a big goal. But by the time you get there, you might find yourself empty. You might find yourself frustrated. You might find yourself in conflict. Why? Because you never connected to you in the first place. You're chasing an ideal based on an assumption, based on a set of beliefs. I mean, to give you a perfect example of this, one of the reasons I set out very early on in my early 20s it was a heart-centered goal, right? I wanted to create a magazine in the UK market. I succeeded in selling that concept to a division of EMAP. It was a really strong title on the market. But why did I set myself up for that? I didn't have contacts, I didn't have money, and I didn't have a career behind me. I was very young, it was born of a vision. But the underlining assumption in me is that I needed to belong. And in order to belong, I had to be significant. And that drove me. Now, that's completely different. Having a driver based on something we perceive is missing from us versus creating a life that really fills us up, creating a life that we can rest in. We didn't come here to be workaholics, but it's so prevalent in our society today.
Yeah, go ahead. So how would we tell somebody who's listening and they say, well, how do I know if I'm a workaholic or not? How do we know if we're workaholic or not?
Workaholics, first, they usually have tunnel vision. They don't think about anything else most of the time. They'll be the ones to cancel on their family, opt out of social occasions because all they want to do is work all the time. They've got a one-track mind. If you have a conversation with them, they'll be really quick to bring that topic into the conversation. They're not going to pause and think about how your kid's doing, what's going on. And even if they do, it's for a split second. So they're not present. They're not present because you can feel their mind working as you're talking to them. So that to me is a sign of a workaholic.
Yeah, and let's talk about that a little bit more right after this message. Thank you so much for listening to the show. This is Beate, the growth architect. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you so much for your time. Have you ever wondered why your business is not growing as quickly as you would like it to be? Well, you may have a business growth blocker. And if you'd like to find out what that business growth blocker is, go and take our brand new quiz at growthblockerquiz.com. And in only a few minutes, you're not just going to find out what that blocker is, but also what to do about it. Again, go to growthblockerquiz.com. And now back to the show. Beate Chelette here, the growth architect, talking with Elizabeth Adams about workaholism. And let me just say, Liz, I am one of them. So I feel that there's a great quote I heard Tyler Garnes say once, and he said, I realized that I started to look my family being in the way of me working more. And I thought that just boom, hit
Mm.
it in the heart. What do you say?
Oh, yeah. I remember that moment. It still makes me emotional. My son was 14 and he said to me, because I'd just explained to him that if I just keep going a few more months, these great things were going to happen. He said to me, I get it, Mum. I'm the sacrifice.
Ooh, oh, I
Most
had a physical
painful.
reaction to that.
Exactly. Exactly. It is so painful because you miss all your kids' most important moments and you think that it's okay. Right. And I'm not trying to put blame on anyone because there are a lot of women who are out there in their careers pursuing, what they see is going to be security for their family and all the rest. And I'm not trying to knock that and make people feel guilty and bad. But I'm just saying, so bring your kid to work. So take the time out and go to that ball game. Because when you were laid up for 2 weeks, the world didn't stop. Your business didn't collapse. So this idea that we have in our mind that everything's going to come crashing down if we're not on it 24/7 is part of the illusion. It's a lie. Take that vacation. Your business and the whole world will still be here when you come back.
How do we get into a pickle like this? What is it in our brain? Is it that it is a societal program? Is it our own worthiness that we need to demonstrate? Is it something else? What is it, Liz? Help
It's
us.
just an addiction. Like any addiction, it starts in the brain. It's a chemical sort of pathway, if you like. So Joe Dispenza's great at this. If you haven't read anything by Joe Dispenza or listened to anything by Joe Dispenza, I highly recommend you check out Joe Dispenza because he explains the way the mind gets addicted to a thought that releases a chemical throughout the body, and we just become addicted to it. So we're living off of that. You can be addicted to a hormone, you can be addicted to, adrenaline, you can, and so once you're in that cycle, it's a practice to rewire your brain. And it starts by making your central nervous system safe. And one of the fastest ways to do that is through the breath, right? Through breathing. That's why mindful practices are valuable. Because what we're doing is we're tapping into our central nervous system and creating space for us to relax. And in that, new opportunity can arrive. We cannot work everything out with the brain.
Yeah, I mean, I had an interview with uh, someone else on the show, and we were talking, and then he said to me, one of the big problems is that people don't have something else. So if you don't have something else, then
Something else as in another focus, something
yeah,
else?
like you don't have to go anywhere to coach a team, or you are having Wednesday dinners, date nights that are untouchable. So take us through the process of a recovering workaholic. How do we
Oh,
start
that
recovering?
can be very messy. I mean, obviously, there are hacks and there are people like me who can support that process so that it's more easeful, shall we say. But if you're going through it alone, it can look like a train wreck for a start. That doesn't mean it's a disaster, but it just looks messy and it will feel very messy. So here's the thing when you say, he says that most people don't have something else. Most of us are just not practiced in creating connection, firstly with ourselves and then with other people. So we can be in a state of hiding so that the only way that we actually relate to the world is through work. Because being in connection, in relationship, feels risky. Yet it's the most rewarding, satisfying cultivation that we can possibly give ourselves and other people. That translates across our entire life. So my workaholism was very much born from lack of connection. I didn't have connection with my true, authentic self. I had a very strong mind telling me I wasn't good enough and I needed significance in the world. That drove me forward into that type of an addiction, to the point where I wasn't even connecting in relationship with my young son at the time. So when you start to see through the illusion, it's painful. Most of the time, we also avoid that process because it can be very painful at first. When we begin to allow ourselves to surrender to that, and maybe we reach out and we get support, then actually it's the most fulfilling, rewarding process that we can allow ourselves to go through, because that's where connection deepens, where our fulfillment, we start to find out things about ourselves that we didn't even know before. And we can relate to the people who matter to us, and we can see them fully. We get to know what really counts for them. And when we know that, we can meet them. But if we're always too busy, because we're always trying to get somewhere in the future, which is what, workaholism is, now is not okay, or tomorrow will not be okay unless we're working, you see. So that sets us up. If we're in that perception of life, we're already setting ourselves up for that cycle. When we can see it for the illusion, we can go, okay, what's really here? Oh, my son is talking to me. That's what's really here. He's telling me about his football game. That's what's happening right now.
Liz, I'm gonna have to ask you this like a really hard question. Am I not finding enough satisfaction out of talking to my child as I find out of my importance in business? Is it related to my sense of fulfillment that I think I'm gonna find fulfillment more somewhere else than here? Or is it just the brain telling you it's all wrong?
It doesn't mean that what you're creating and what you're going for and what you're creating in business isn't great or isn't exciting to you, right? It's just if we are going, okay, well, all of my week is dedicated to this, and when someone talks to me, even if it's my child or my partner, or I cannot take a moment to hear them because this is what I've got to do right now. I mean, I thought that was normal. At home growing up, my dad ran his own business. If you interrupted, oh my God, you were dead almost, right? So it was just a normal assumption that, yeah, if you're on a call and you're working, then, don't interrupt. So I don't think it's about judging yourself that what you're doing in life isn't fulfilling, or being a parent isn't fulfilling. And so you're just trying to escape it, because, there is contribution and value in what you want to do in the world. As a mother, as a father, I'm not saying don't work. I'm just saying work differently and question the assumptions that you have around your work.
How can I set better boundaries with myself? Because I think that, or priorities. People always say, show me your calendar and I show you where your priorities are. We believe here, the growth architect, that you kind of have to calendar everything, even though for some that may be counterintuitive.
Well,
But
what's first in your calendar? What's the first in your thing in your calendar?
well, I have very much made lots of changes because once I had an open calendar that everybody had access to, I saw what was happening to my time. Uh, Pandemonium, right? Then I was like, "Oh, I cannot do that." That literally was crazy me because I was running from one place to another, just having conversations. I'm like, "Okay, Mondays and Tuesdays, I'm recording podcasts, either as a guest or a host. That's it. 2 days. That's it." Then I said, "Okay, but now I need to actually have the ability to have follow-up conversations because I realized now I don't have not enough time." So I had to figure out a schedule for that. That is what led me to recognize that I need help with sales because I looked at the time that was available and I'm like, it's just not humanly possible because if I have 15 phone calls on Monday and Tuesday, how am I going to catch up on 15 phone calls that I do every single week in one day, a week? I mean, it's just the numbers just didn't add up. So I'm like, okay, I need to change. Then I realized that whenever I go on a vacation, I look at my full calendar and I go, where can I fit the vacation? I'm like, oh, that's the wrong way to do this.
Mm.
I have to go in the calendar first.
Yes, that's exactly it. Time with you is the first thing in your calendar, right?
Yeah.
I do not. I used to do that whole thing of wake up really early and get straight to work and now I wake up and it's time for me and I take it at the pace that I need it. I take it at the pace that my body needs it. If my body says no, I listen. And that's the thing about the culture we create out there in the workplace. It's do we allow that? I mean, I know a business who have this thing called Menopause Awareness Week, right? It's a small step, but it's like, okay, are you letting people listen to what they need? Because anything that you have on your to-do list can be done in a nanosecond. It doesn't take time, it takes intention. So it's not about, maximizing all your time. It's about take time for you, be connected with yourself, allow yourself to have your pleasure and allow yourself to have your desire in life.
I love that. So if somebody now says pleasure, what is pleasure? What can we tell them and how to discover what's even pleasurable for them? Because
Mm,
people forget how
mm,
much fun it is to go for a walk at the beach. And for those of you on the podcast, I'm looking at Liz has a background here on our Zoom with the waves rolling in ever so nicely. And I went on the for a walk this weekend. My partner had a significant, change. His daughter moved away to a different city, moving in with a man that she's going to get engaged to. So, I could tell there was a lot. So I said, let's go to the beach. The resistance he throws up,
mm,
just
mm.
to go out for 30 minutes. Well, if I go outside, it has to be a bike ride. It has to be a hard exercise because I got to get my cardio and I got to lose the weight. It's like, no, you and we're going to just go on the beach, which is 7 minutes from our house. We're just going to put our toes in the water and we're just going to see because it was a beautiful day on Saturday. Um,
Mm.
and just be outside and just the resistance alone. So, how do we get over the inner resistance that tells us you don't have time for a 30-minute walk on the beach? You
Don't
don't have
listen.
time to just sit here and read a chapter of a book.
Yeah. So just do it, right? Just get
Yeah.
out. Literally, I mean, we can make resistance about anything, but it's totally different when we're actually in the experience. So it is just a case of just doing it. But how do you find what brings you pleasure? Everyone is different. So but I agree with you, being in nature is a really great leveler. It reconnects us, it plugs us back in. to nourishment, to de-stress the body, to become more present. So I'm a massive fan of my walks in nature and spending that time in nature. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you 100%. So, Liz, for somebody who's heard this and said, "My God, just hearing her talk makes me be all calm and fuzzy inside." How do you help people to overcome that, and where can we find out more about you?
Sure. So mostly I work with people in a container with just the two of us. Sometimes it's with a group, but it's really looking at and unpacking, spending the time to unpack through a deeper inquiry. And we look at the assumptions. We look at, for example, I had a chap who's raising quite a lot of investment, 2 million or so, and I didn't actually know him when this happened. He was offered the investment. He walked away because he made an assumption about those investors. So, what I like to do with my clients is encourage them to bring everything to the table so we can look at that in advance. Because really, the truth of that situation for him was he simply needed to ask a question. He simply needed better communication with those investors. So, and he would have had that investment a lot quicker than how he ended up approaching it based on his assumption. So that's the kind of work I do and the impact it has, right? It can help people actually create their results faster because they're not building walls. They're not creating barriers between themselves and what they're actually trying to achieve. So that's the first thing. And the best place to find me is actually on LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, I go under the name Your Confidant. And I hope that, we can put a link somewhere so people can
Yes,
find
we will
me.
put links in the show notes for sure.
And that's basically the best way, just send me a DM on there. Yeah.
Wonderful. Excellent. All right. Well, Liz, this has been very calming and very different. You know, we talk a lot about strategy, obviously, on our podcast because everything we do is around workflows, processes, systems, and strategies. But I will say from my own experience, especially, my daughter's pregnant.
Oh,
And
congratulations.
yes, it's going to be so life changing. And I'm really thinking about what I had to do to get her through. And now with this grandchild coming, on what I do and don't want to do. And I made a very clear commitment to myself that I am going to want to be there because it was so difficult when I was a sole provider, single mom, you oftentimes don't have a choice, but now I do. And
Mm,
I can feel that some of these things that we talked about today are really a deliberate choice to look at it from a different perspective.
mm,
Yes, we're always going to be worried about our income as business owners and the cash flow and making payroll and growing our business. But what I heard from you today is that if every minute of our day is occupied, there is no space where things can come in because
mm.
we are playing God, which goes right back to our opening of the conversation. I think that's really what I want. That's what I'm taking away from our conversation, and what I'm sure a lot of our listeners hopefully will be taken away. And do share that in the comments, or when you give us a feedback on this particular show, wherever you pick up your podcast. Let us know what you're taking away because I think it's a really interesting topic to slow down, allow to make space, let life happen, and you'll be surprised at the results because it's not like you look like your business is suffering as a result of it. You look happy. Your relationship to your son is probably much happier, and you're still here. So nothing bad happened when you started to put yourself first. Isn't that shocking?
Actually, the funny thing about that, Piace, is when I really began to embrace this, I made more money more easily without any effort whatsoever. It literally turned up the way you described how your chap wrote to you and looked for helping you with your sales. And that's exactly how most of my clients found me as well.
Yeah.
So this perception of we've got to do XYZ, it's I invite everybody to just take a bit of a inquiry into that and see if it's really true. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. I love that. And with that, we're going to finalize the show. So thank you so much, Liz. It's been really amazing to talk to you. I feel calm, and I know what we talk about is really, really important for everybody to hear. So that's it for us today. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And if you watch it, for watching this, and please do reach out if there's anything we can help you with. And until next time, and this is Beate Chelette. Goodbye.
Thanks.
And that's it for us today. Thank you for listening and watching the Business Growth Architect Show. I enjoyed having you here. And for accountability, just take one of the strategies that you have heard, one thing that you can implement in your business immediately. Please leave comments. Don't forget to like and share this show. And if you have any questions about business, please put them in the comments. We are here for you. We're here to support you and help you to grow, build, and scale your own business. For more advice, please check out our website in the show notes below. Thank you again. This is Beate Chelette, the Growth Architect, and goodbye.